It's almost like you can't hear the music. The way your body moves is like to another song.
Yeah. Welcome to the History Hyenas, everybody. I am Chrissy Cackles Distefano, a.k.a. Celine Dion. with me as always, Yannis Pappas, a.k.a. Freddie Fettuccine, a.k.a. K.D. Lang.
A.K.A. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And we are sitting here, of course, as always, with Zach Isis, who is fucking jacked.
I mean, that kid is fucking jacked.
That kid is fucking ready to jihad right now.
He is wearing a cut-off sleeveless shirt, and his arms are fucking jacked and hairy.
And make no mistake, Zach Isis does have hair from his pinky to his fucking earlobe. He is covered in hair.
Make no mistake, this fucking podcast has been great for Zach Isis, because make no mistake, when we started, he looked like a jihadi, and now he looks like a kid who lives in Williamsburg.
Yeah, he's a fucking jacked kid with a fucking cool haircut, and he's wearing a cut-off sleeve Punisher t-shirt and fatigue jean shorts, and he looks like he can fix your car, but unfortunately, he cannot fix your car, but he can fix your computer, because inside Zach, the exterior of Zach looks like a fucking steroided out jihadi fucking muzzy, but the inside of Zach is unfortunately just a small white kid with scoliosis that fixes computers and gets no puss.
He's looking like a sexy fucking kid right now, and he also picked probably the cleanest hyena backdrop we have had to date. These hyenas all look like they just came out of a bath.
Yeah. Zach, make no mistake, if it gets just a few degrees hotter and I come in here one day drunk off white Zinfandel, I will offer to suck your dick in the back room.
Make no mistake about that.
No mistake.
Today, since Chrissy just said he offered to suck dicks, this whole episode is going to be about the dick region and history. This episode is fucking wild.
We are talking about today the history of the eunuch. Okay? If you don't know what a eunuch is, it is a male who was castrated either forcibly or did it voluntarily for either religious purposes or sexual purposes.
Or right now you could just walk around Austin, Texas, or Williamsburg, or Greenpoint, or any hipsterized neighborhood that is in your state, and you will see a population of emasculated eunuchs.
Yeah!
For all intents and purposes, castrated men.
Yeah, there were, unfortunately, in history, there were a lot of men who were castrated and cut their balls off, and we'll go through all the histories of it today and all the different methods and shit, and it's going to get fucking wild. But right now, yeah, we do live in a world where if you're on the telephone, you cannot tell if it's a man or a woman, because a lot of men right now are just very emasculated, and they sound like little girls, and that's fine. I'm happy to be living in 2018 amongst them, but make no mistake, if this was ancient Rome and some of the men who are openly straight with wives and children just sat down and talked at court, they would assume that they were eunuchs. Make no mistake.
Fortunately, me and Chrissy had the experience the other day where we were hanging out with a bunch of people, and only one of those guys that we were hanging out with was gay. And believe it or not, he was the most masculine guy who was there.
Easily.
Is a true statement that I just said, and is still blowing my mind till this day, because I've been thinking about it for 4 days, and it's 100% true. He was a gay guy. He's as gay can get.
He was gay. He was a day one gay, no doubt about it, home run gay. So what we mean by that is some people are gay. They're always, everybody's born. If you are gay, you're born that way. But, society...
There's a spectrum.
There's a spectrum, and society can make you go one way or another. Make no mistake, any corner of the world at any time in history, this man that Yannis is talking about would be 100% to the full effect as gay as can be, because he had no chance from day one, and he was a day one gay, or I call it a D1G.
And he was the only one who sucked dick, but he was the most manly of the guys there, because the other guys there... just kind of, they all talk like this now. And
Yeah.
like, I love my girlfriends so much. My girlfriend's so fucking hot.
Yeah. When my daughter...
Let's go hunting for some fucking pussy tonight.
Oh, Chris, you have a daughter? Yeah, I have a daughter too, and I have a son. And what we like to do is sit down in circle time, and they like to just take off my shirt and put goat milk on my nipples and tell daddy that he's a little woman.
We are fucking going tomorrow night with the whole family. We got a lot of snacks, and we're going to go down there doing movies in the park, and we're going to watch it, and we got ourselves a whole bottle of Martinelli's sparkling 100% organic apple cider.
Yeah, I don't want my son playing football because it's aggressive.
He is on the chess team.
Yeah.
And you better believe it.
Yeah, have you ever really thought about like why our dads were so mean to us when we were playing sports? I don't want that same victimhood for my children.
Sorry, Melanie, we cannot make it for brunch on Tuesday because I have to do a shift at the co-op.
Yeah, hi. My name is Mark, and I am a father of 5, and I feed my family, but I do not have a job. I am a temp, and at any moment during the day, any day of the week, from the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., you could see me in my, quotes, office, which is the back of a Starbucks.
Hi.
So, yeah. Go ahead. I live off all my dad's money. I'm a trust fund baby, and I am a closeted gay.
Sorry, I cut you off.
It's okay. I don't want to be aggressive and violent towards you, but remember, I am a man. I do have a wife. I do have children, and I am straight.
Hi. My name is Damian Steven.
Hi.
I am a fucking competitive ultimate frisbee player.
Oh.
And our team is going to the finals.
Yeah.
And we are doing so good. We beat another co-ed team. That team was called the Wokester Rollerbladers.
Yeah.
And we are the Erykah Badu's.
Yeah.
And the Erykah Badu's, they're playing the what did I call it? The Wokester Rollerbladers.
Yeah.
For the finals. Nobody's keeping score. It's just a victory that we're all out there on the field today.
Hi, my name is Elliot Owens, and unfortunately, I watched a show called Ultimate Beastmaster, and there was a host on that show. His name was Chris Distefano, and he was very aggressive, and he had a lot of national pride. And I was watching it with my children, and I tweeted at him, and I said, how am I supposed to watch this stuff with my children with your aggressive behavior? And he tweeted back at me, shut your mouth, you little bitch. And I just felt really sensitive about that, and I don't know how to talk to my children, so I am in therapy. Again, I am a grown man with a family, and I am not gay, but I am in therapy, and I do feel really like that Chris Distefano was insensitive at his tweets, and I don't know what to do. So, yeah, I like frozen yogurt.
Well, you got to tweet Ultimate Beastmaster, which you did host last year.
I did host that show last year, and I was fired immediately for just being too funny.
You were just fired immediately because
I said things
of your haircut, really.
Yeah, that's what it was. I just had the wrong look. I have the wrong white look for post-2016 America.
And so this kid, since he's, I'm just going to say his name, Matt Eichhoff.
Yeah.
Because he tweeted at you.
He did tweet at me, so it's in public.
He said, thank you, Netflix. And he is from
I want to say
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
So, first of all, it's ironic that he's saying this to you because his name is Matt Eichhoff. So there is no doubt about it that his ancestors owned slaves or he is the descendant of Nazis or Nazi sympathizers.
1,000%.
Make no mistake. So listen, Matt, no matter how sensitive you pretend to be, it will not make up for the fact that your ancestors probably had slaves, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
So anyway, he says, thank you, Netflix and the producers of Beastmaster for getting rid of Chris Distefano and adding CM Punk as the new USA co-host. The same great show we love now with 50% less ignorance. And my name is Matt Eichhoff, and I 100% am a eunuch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am a eunuch.
And then Chrissy Cackles replied to him, make no mistake, he said, Matt, unfortunately, you get excited by a show where volunteer firefighters jump on lily pads through a dragon's mouth. You're a grown man, and it's embarrassing, and I guarantee you get zero puss. And it is what it is, Maddie. Yeah! And then I responded to Maddie. I said, Maddie, unfortunately, we would still love to have you listen to our podcast, History Hyenas.
Yeah,
listen, every chance we get for a little promotion,
why
I'm
not?
taking it. Yeah. And so hopefully, Maddie, you come on board and listen to the History Hyenas.
It is what it is. But listen, Matt, we're going to talk about you and your people today. And like Yannis mentioned, we're talking about the history of eunuchs. So you may know I feel like a lot of people have only been introduced to eunuchs from Lord Varys' character on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
That's, I feel, the mass public now is finally hearing about eunuchs. I've known about eunuchs for a long time. Because I just Google random shit, and I was always a curious kid, and I always thought about what it would be like to have no testicles. And I remember one night, I'll never forget, my mom was making salmon and putting mustard on it, but like, French's mustard, because, make no mistake, I am from Queens, and my mom was a working class woman, so we didn't have Grey Poupon or anything like that. My mom would make me salmon and put French's mustard on it. So it is what it is. And I remember asking her why I was a little kid, 6, 7, what my testicles meant. What balls did and all that. And she was trying to explain it to me. And she did tell me, because my mom is a fucking hardcore Catholic, so she knew about eunuchs because they were a big part of Christianity. And she told me about eunuchs. And then I was fascinated from that point on. And I did go into my room that night and stick my dick and balls in between my legs and giggle at what the sight of me having a vagina would look like. And unfortunately, if you fast forward 10 years after that, I was an altar boy. And Father Bill did ask me to go get a extra large cloak, and I did black out, and I do not remember what happened after, but I think you know what happened, and I am in therapy, unfortunately.
There is a good chance that you were touched, because let's make no mistake, you were sexually lusted after by Puerto Rican women that lived in your neighborhood.
Yep.
And Father Bill.
Yeah, and you know that because you actually went on a walking tour around my neighborhood of Ridgewood, Queens.
Me and Chrissy are having a good time on this planet. We're having a good time with this podcast. So what I did the other day, just for fun, by myself, for no reason, I had a couple of hours to kill, I decided to go to Ridgewood, Queens.
Yeah.
If you're not living in New York City, which most of you are not, we know we got fans all over the world, Ridgewood, Queens is a working class neighborhood in Queens that Chris Distefano is from. He is a 100% no doubt product of Ridgewood, Queens.
Yep.
And when you hear the word unfortunately, and it sounds like that just shows you that Queens is so deeply embedded in his soul, and that can only happen in a place like Ridgewood, Queens, which is rammed in between Glamdale and fucking Bushwick, cuz.
Yeah.
You walk 2 blocks to the south, you got a lot of black kids, and then you walk to the other side, you got fucking retired cops living in Glendale. Yeah. And in the middle, just 49% Puerto Rican, 39% Irish. You got immigrants from Mexico, Venezuela,
Poland,
a lot of Poles, Serbia, Bosnia. I mean, I walked around that neighborhood for 20 minutes. I heard English twice.
Yeah! That's where I grew up.
That's where you grew up.
Yeah, so it was a lot of Catholics here, and I live
the
right.
The skyline of your neighborhood
is St. Matthias Church, the Ridgewood skyline.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there was probably a lot of kids who got touched at St. Matthias.
Yeah, if this was 400 years in the past, make no mistake, I would have been forced to be a eunuch. So that would have happened so that I would be just a pleasure. I would be a pleasure toy for men who weren't all the way gay but still want to fuck around with a little boy, and that would be me, and they would just have cut my balls off, and it is what it is.
And since I'm Greek, I've always gotten a lot of jokes about eunuchs, and that's how I know about eunuchs, is because people always joke around about how eunuchs is really kind of a Greek invention. Unfortunately, what we've learned is that eunuchs are kind of ubiquitous. If you look back in history...
Ubiquitous, good word.
They were in every culture. China, India, the Muzzies had them, Arabs, the Byzantine era, then later in the Italians, the 15th, 16th century, post-Rome, when it was actually Italy, they had freaking eunuchs. So eunuchs have been all over the place. We're not sure if Native Americans had eunuchs, but they did have, transgendered. They had people that they called, and we posted it. Please follow us on Instagram, Bay Ridge Boys. We posted what they were called in the Native American world. They were considered two-spirited humans, people who had masculine and feminine properties, and we posted that History Hyena fact of the day on our Instagram. But eunuchs are ubiquitous, and there have been eunuchs for many different reasons, and I'll start by saying what's crazy is today, right now, there are more eunuchs walking around the earth than ever before. Make no mistake, that's because obviously the population is greater now than it ever has been, but also it's because cancer is now prevalent. Testicular cancer is very prevalent. Prostate cancer, very prevalent. And make no mistake, when you have prostate cancer, the cancer grows on your testosterone, and the way they get rid of it is chemically. They erase your testosterone, or they take your nuts out. So there's a lot of eunuchs walking around.
Yeah, because testosterone will make the cancer grow. And the fact that you just said cancer grows on your testosterone is a dumb fucking Greek stupid fucking fuckface thing to say.
I am a dumb kid.
You're a dumb fucking kid, and it's funny that you said that, and everything you're saying is fucking true. And I gotta be honest with you, cuz when doing my research on eunuchs was fucking fascinating, because like you said, there are so many people. Like I have a friend who lost a ball because he had testicular cancer. He lost a fucking nut.
Are we gonna call him or no?
No, no. He told me not to call him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and we can't even use his name either.
Yeah. But make no mistake, when I was experimenting as a kid, he did put his dick in my mouth, and I just have to deal with that. So it is what it is. And,
a lot of strange things happen in Irish Catholic neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to lick a dick, you know? I mean, it doesn't make me gay. It's just, I think most of us have went through that.
But because you come from one of the most diverse neighborhoods probably in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, he had to get it removed because he had cancer. So he is a eunuch. That is a eunuch is just a person.
He still has one ball, though.
He still has one ball, but if you have any of your two balls altered or removed in any way, then you fit the definition of a eunuch.
Yeah.
Make no. So I like to pick up the eunuchs. In the Roman Empire, because make no mistake, the Roman Empire was fucking wild, and they outlawed. They didn't like eunuchs. They outlawed castration.
But let me just start. We're going to start in the Roman Empire because that's where a lot of interesting eunuch shit happened.
Right.
But make no mistake, eunuchs go all the way back to the Sumerians,
which is the first
Assyrians,
civilization.
Egyptians, they, like I said, have been ubiquitous, and throughout time, there have been eunuchs, and there have been methods of castration. Obviously, the farther back you go, the more brutal they are. And most of the times, a lot of the boys who were castrated, because they always castrate them young against their will, because human nature is fucking brutal, a lot of them died. So that's what it was.
It was and if you didn't die, you were almost looked as like godly for surviving it.
Yeah.
So it was fucking wild.
And the word eunuch comes from the Greek, and it means bedside. And we will tell you why as we go along, because it's fucking wild.
So the Roman Empire, they had different categories of eunuchs. The first one was the Spadones. Spadones, the Spadones. It's fucking Spadoni Gardens.
Fucking Spadoni over here. You know they really could. That was like that's a curse that they called people when someone is acting like a little. They say these guys are fucking Spadone. Yeah.
Now it's interesting enough because all Spadone really encompassed. The definition of it was just a generic term for a variety of subtypes of asexual men. So in reality, there were a lot of fucking Spadones walking around today.
I'm a Spadone now.
You are a Spadone because you like radiator covers and different kinds of flowers. So unfortunately, you're a fucking Spadoni.
Yeah. There's a few people who claim to be asexual, which is wild.
Yeah. Now, Spadones, they were just kind of like, they didn't have these strong sexual characteristics. They were kind of like, I guess, androgynous, right, in a way. Like
Mr. Rogers-esque.
Yeah, like you just kind of don't know.
Yeah.
They're like Pat from that SNL sketch. Like you just kind of like, you don't know one way or another.
Yeah.
And but they actually weren't abused, really. Spadones were kind of just like, okay, you do whatever you want. We have a category for you. We're going to call you and make fun of you, but we're not really going to hurt you.
What he's basically saying is they actually still had their nuts.
Right.
They were not, they were more personality eunuchs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they weren't really trusted to the full extent, but they kind of weren't, nobody trusted a rageful man.
They were not surgically made eunuchs.
No, they were
I
actually
use the
called
word surgic in quotes because back then they just cut your fucking shit out.
Yeah, they were actually like the Romans used to call the spadolas like natural eunuchs. So like a hermaphrodite or like a guy with like a little piece. Like those guys were natural eunuchs.
Oh, so it wasn't just personality driven. It was more like they were born with both. They were born intersex or hermaphrodite.
Exactly. So like things that we have categories for now, different porn categories for now.
Yeah.
That's what spadones were.
Because do you think hermaphrodites, if you got a big enough piece in the front, you can fold it back and fuck your own puss?
I mean, I would love Zach to do some research on that and find out if there's a person or more importantly a video that we could watch of doing that. So I would love to hear about that, but I do think it's possible. And I did tell you about the time when I did, unfortunately, do physical therapy on a hermaphrodite.
You did tell me about that.
Okay. So the next category are the Thylabiae. Thilbiaei. The Thylabiae. So these little fuckers, these eunuchs were the ones who, here's where, if you're sitting down, just fucking put your seatbelt on. These eunuchs had their testicles bruised or pressed.
Yeah.
So these weren't ripped off. This was the process. They would tie the scrotum really to sever the vas deferens. So it's like a vasectomy, but it's an old school vasectomy where instead of doing surgical precision and giving you anesthesia and having recovery time, they would just crush your fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And tie off your vas deferens so you couldn't reproduce.
It did not tickle.
No. And the genitals actually look normal. You kind of wouldn't know if you were a thilobi unless I told you, because your piece kind of just looked regs.
Right.
Yeah.
But they kind of rendered your balls inactive.
Yeah, and this they used to choose this because cutting, as Yannis said in the beginning, cutting your balls off and castrating yourself. This wasn't like a medical procedure where like experienced surgeons and doctors would do this. This was like most of the time in the ancient world, it was for religious purposes or to sell them. So most of the time, your dad or your priest was taking scissors, not even like nice sharp scissors we have now, dull fucking prehistoric scissors, and cutting off your nuts.
Yeah, or it was
with no anesthesia.
A conquering army that came into your village and would unfortunately take all the women and fucking castrate all the boys.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Now, the third category, and this one was a bit, I don't know which one I would go for, but these were called the Thladii, Thladiae, and unfortunately, the Thladii comes from a Greek word that means to crush.
A Greek?
A Greek word that means to crush. So
sometimes that queen's trash just gets in the way of even talking.
So a Thladii, unfortunately, this kind of eunuch just had their balls crushed until they popped in its sack and you fucking pissed out blood and pissed out your fucking balls. Unfortunately. So
again, that did not tickle.
Yeah, and this method was also more effective and immediate than the scrotum tying because unfortunately, when you tie off someone's scrotum, still to this day, you can get a vasectomy even with modern medicine, and there still can be sperm that get through to fertilize an egg. But unfortunately, if I just fucking step on your nuts and crush them into little pieces and you piss them out into a toilet bowl, you are never going to reproduce again, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, some people who get vasectomies still are in a lot of pain, and then they end up getting their balls removed just to stop the pain, right?
Yeah, and that is Ari Shafir.
Yeah, he had a vasectomy.
Yeah. Okay, now this one is the most popular one. The other category they had was the castrati. So
castrati, that came later.
Now, no, this is all going on at the same time.
But this castrati was like 15th, 16th century.
No, but the castrati, but
they had them in the Roman Empire too?
The Roman, no, these categories that I'm reading to are the Roman Empire's categorization of eunuchs.
Because the castrati actually went all the way to the 15th, 16th century, yeah.
Yeah, so the castrati, now, this is a little bit debatable. All the scholars don't agree on the castrati, but it was said that castrati, they were a whole different category than everybody. I mean, they're all eunuchs, but the castrati were different because they actually had their gonads removed and their penises. So make no mistake, if you were castrated as castrati, not only did you have no balls, but unfortunately, you also had no piece.
Yeah, unfortunately, what you had left there was a little bit of a worn-out elevator button. They left you with a little clit.
Yeah, and these were done to mostly prepubescent boys, which is fucked up.
Yeah.
So they couldn't pass on their inheritance. They were usually done by their pops. They couldn't pass on their inheritance, or not by their pops. They were done by a conquering army.
Yeah.
So they couldn't pass on their inheritance.
Yeah.
And they couldn't reproduce. So unfortunately, that one sucked because it was just a little fucking kid.
So that's where the word castrati started for those guys, but it ended up in the 15th century, 15th and 1600s, being for the fucking ballless opera singers.
Exactly. So those are really those were the categories of eunuchs according to the Romans.
In the Romans, yeah.
Yeah. So but really, there was a time where the Romans actually outlawed castration. So they didn't like it at first, the Romans.
Well, they didn't. It was one of those things that I guess they saw as brutal. The Council of Nicaea is actually where they outlawed it, correct?
325 AD. Now, the Council of Nicaea is interesting because all the rules of Christianity, like Jesus' birthday being on December 25th, or not being able to eat meat on Fridays, or having to go to church, or Advent, was all just created by a bunch of dudes in 325 AD.
Bunch of Roman dudes.
And but it was really also too where the division of the church started to happen too.
Well, it's also where
the East and the West Church.
They invented the Holy Trinity. That's where they decided the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, was created at the Council of Nicaea.
Guys, make no mistake, I am a Catholic. I do have Catholic tattoos. On my body, but make no mistake, in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea, Christianity was just decided by a few men, okay? It was not divine intervention. It was just a few Roman dudes that sat in Nicaea and just decided what the rules of Christianity would be. And there's a lot of the Bibles were chosen, the readings were chosen, all the definitions of and the kind of what would go into the religion was all just chosen. So make no mistake, Christianity is an invention of a few men in 325 AD. That's the truth.
And make no mistake, you are never, ever, ever going to say that again to your mom. There's no point to that. Your mom is a Catholic girl from Ridgewood. Her and Aunt Eileen will be Catholic till the day they die.
And unfortunately, if my mother did listen to this episode of the podcast, she would take what I just said and understand that it is fact because her son does have a doctorate degree and he does do his research, and it would be a lot for her to take. So she would unfortunately go down to the corner store, the bodega on the corner where she has been running a tab since 1986, and get a 6-pack of Heineken and drink until she passes out.
Her and Aunt Eileen like to have a couple beers on a Saturday night, no?
Yeah, they drink a couple of beers and they put different outfits on my daughter, and there have been times when my Aunt Eileen has got so smashed where she put my daughter's diapers on her head and took pictures of it.
Aunt Eileen also has emphysema, but she's still smoking cigarettes.
Yeah!
The Distefano household is fucking wild. She also, at one point, you know what I mean, had a husband who had a family someplace else.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Unfortunately, we may have to edit this part of the podcast
That's why,
out.
while I was saying it, I was going, you know what? That's probably not going to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zach, can you make a note? We're editing that part out.
Zach is fucking right now doing CrossFit.
Yeah. Zach looks fucking jacked.
I really want to tell the story. I know that you said, because we have to do a whole episode on the Emperor Nero, the Roman Emperor Nero, which I'm sure you guys know a lot about. I'm sure you guys, everybody knows Nero, right? But
You love this.
I love this story so much. Just because, look, we're doing research on eunuchs, so we're going to go into all these different times in history. But I found this story from the 1st century about a very famous eunuch named Sporus. Sporus. Now,
it's safe to say this kid had a little bit of a rough life that didn't stop.
He had a rough life. This story that I'm about to tell you is about Sporus' rough life, but also about the fucking complete insanity of Nero. So make no mistake, what I'm about to tell you guys is fucking wild and is 100% true, unfortunately. Okay, so like I said, castration was a big no-no under Roman law in the 1st century. You just couldn't do it. It was outlawed. But then Nero comes along, and understand one thing about Nero, he did not give a fuck about laws.
No.
He lived life in his own fucking lane.
You think Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about what he says about him? Times that by 1,000,000.
Yeah, Nero. Okay, so Nero saw himself above the law, and he just decided to castrate Sporus.
Yeah.
Sporus, now don't... Make no mistake, Sporus was just some Roman kid, Roman teenager walking around the streets of Rome and was just pulled off the street and castrated immediately.
He was probably a really cute kid.
Yeah, well, here's what happened. So, people really don't know about Sporus' background, except that he was a young man who, Nero just liked and probably thought he was cute. So, Nero decides to castrate Sporus and then listen to what I'm about to tell you. Nero decides to castrate Sporus, who's a guy, of course, and then make Sporus his wife. So Nero just said, I'm all of a sudden going to castrate a man. I'm not openly gay, but I'm going to make Sporus my fucking wife. And I'm the Emperor of Rome, and you could do nothing. And then their marriage included a ceremony where he made Sporus wear a bride's veil. He gave her a dowry, and afterwards he threw them a wonderful honeymoon in Greece. Okay?
If you think gender fluidity was a big thing now, it was huge with Nero's time.
Yeah, and they're saying that Nero probably married Sporus because Nero himself was feeling guilty because about a month before that, make no mistake, Nero did in fact kick his pregnant wife Sabina to death. He kicked her to death, and he said that Sporus bore an uncanny resemblance to Sabina, and he had to have her. He even used to call Sporus by his dead wife's name, Sabina, unfortunately.
So you know what that means? That means that is probably why Sporus was chosen, and that's probably why he was castrated. He is the fucking unluckiest kid that lived during Nero's era. He was probably just walking down the street, and crazy fucking Nero was in his chariot, and he happened to look out his window, and he said, "Is that fucking Sabina?" And they said, "No, your emperor. Sabina."
No, you kicked her to death.
You kicked her to death in the stomach and killed her and your unborn child.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have forgot about that. I'm fucking wild and crazy. My name's Nero. No, that's Sabina. Bring him to me." And then they brought that thing into his chariot, and they said, "Let me see his puss." And they said, "Oh, he's got your emperor. That is not Sabina. It has a dick." And he said, "Give me this scissors. Not anymore. That's Sabina." This is the most unfortunate kid to ever walk the face of the earth.
Yeah, and feed me his balls like fucking grapes.
Yeah. You telling me he's not Sabina? Give me scissors. Now he is.
Yeah, and here's how fucking wild Nero was. This podcast is not about Nero. We will get back to Eunuch shortly, but I just need to tell you a sidebar about how fucking wild Nero was. So I told you that he just randomly picked Sporus off the street, cut his nuts off, and said, "Now you're my wife." But make no mistake, Nero also did marry 2 other men in his life, and they were not castrated in those marriages because Nero wanted to be the wife. So make no mistake, Nero was married 3 times. Twice as a wife and once as a husband. So Nero is fucking wild.
Nero takes your fucking gender fluidity and fucking pees on it. Because he was the most gender fluid motherfucker of all time.
Yeah, and also the story does go that unfortunately, one day in 68 AD, somebody told Nero that they had ran out of grapes and cheese, and Nero did in fact kill himself immediately. And he jumped out a window and killed himself as the sitting emperor of Rome because they ran out of grapes and cheese momentarily.
Yeah, listen. You could go to Nero and say to him, "Nero, there are 137 genders," and he would go, "Are you fucking crazy?" But not because he thought there was only 2 genders. He would go, "There's fucking 4,066 genders. Yeah. Bring me all the grapes and cheese and fucking eunuchs you can. I'ma fuck a horse and jump out a window. Yeah."
Now, getting back to Sporus the eunuch, his story doesn't stop there. So you know, Nero kills himself, so Sporus is widowed.
Before you go on, let's just take note that Sporus' asshole has been fucking plunged many times.
Yeah.
That kid cannot take a shit without going through immense pain.
It is what it is. So, Sporus next married Nymphidius Sabinus, who made an unsuccessful bid for emperor that ended with his death at the hands of his opponent's followers. So whatever. So Sporus takes another shot.
I always found this is fascinating that he got passed on to a couple more emperors. He must have been a really good-looking, feminine-looking kid.
Must have been a good fuck.
Yeah, he must have been a good fuck.
So then Sporus becomes involved with Emperor Otho, who was also killed by his enemies. So that's not the, so he goes 2 for 2. He gets 2 emperors that kill him. Then finally, Sporus is passed off again to the greedy, gluttonous, and debauched Emperor Vitellius, who, now this is why Vitellius, I will say one thing about Emperor Vitellius, the guy does just kind of want to have a good time with everything, and he doesn't want to up the antes. Now, what I'm about to tell you is unfortunately true, and me and Yannis do not condone this, but you do have to admit, Emperor Vitellius was fucking wild, just like Emperor Nero. So, they were at the gladiator games, big things,
Oh, this is the best.
Like NBA games, or football games. Like back in the day, it was gladiator games. And Emperor Vitellius said, "You know what? The halftime shows at these games are getting a little boring. So here's what I propose. Why don't you guys, instead of dancing around and handing out treats, why don't you just take Sporus, put him in a dress, and then rape him for the enjoyment of the crowds? Why don't you guys just do that?"
True story.
True story. And then Sporus said, "Yeah, that's not going to happen," and immediately killed himself to shave the embarrassment. So unfortunately, Sporus' story starts out pretty funny and wild, and then it gets pretty fucking sad.
I'd say it starts out pretty fucking tragic and ends pretty tragic.
And it actually kind of gets worse.
Yeah. I don't think it started funny. I mean, he was literally walking down the street, probably minding his own business, and Nero was passing in a chariot, saw him, said, "That looks like the ex-wife that I just kicked to death. Go cut his balls off and make him my wife. Because I am already married to 2 other dudes, and I'm the wife of those 2 dudes. So I need a wife." And then, unfortunately, Nero killed himself when cheese and grapes ran out. And unfortunately, now Sporus is a eunuch who needs to find a place in the world. So he tries to marry 2 other emperors. Unfortunately, the second emperor says, "You know what? what would be better than marrying you was be putting you in the middle of the Roman Coliseum, which is beautifully still the 7 wonders of the world. Back then, that was as big as fucking like Ohio State Stadium, 64 to 84. How many people could sit in the Coliseum? 84,000, I think?
Yeah.
Like 84,000 Romans were going to have a halftime show in between people killing themselves and being eaten by lions. You know what we're going to do to lighten the party up a little bit? The halftime show where Sporus is going to be gang raped in his asshole for Roman citizen entertainment. It was a fun time back then.
Yeah.
50,000. 50,000 Romans would watch Sporus get raped.
Now, there was a lot of just famous eunuchs throughout history. That was a famous one. There was this other guy. His name was Peter Abellard, and he was alive from 1079 to 1142. He was like an intellectual dude, smart dude, religious dude. He was a fucking religious dude at Notre Dame in Paris. But, of course, like any religious dude, one day he sees his niece and just decides to make it his peace. So, unfortunately, he was like, yeah, I'm religious, I love God, but my niece has got a fat ass, so I'm going to marry her and have sex with her against her will. And that's what happened. And then her name was Heloise, okay? And they had a relationship. They had a kid, probably all against her will. And then one day...
Wait, I think you're mixing up a little facts, unfortunately.
No.
I don't think it was his niece. I think he was studying with a guy, some churchman, and it was the churchman's niece.
Yeah. It was beautiful, intelligent, living niece.
Yeah. So he was studying with this guy, and he fell in love with the guy's niece. And then
Who was 17, so that's actually pretty old for back then.
Back then, that's like an old woman. So he made an excuse that instead of commuting to and from this guy's house, it would be better if he could just stay there. But it was all a ploy because he was falling in love with this dude's niece, and then he banged her and had a child with her. Yeah. Take it away, Chrissy Cackles.
Yeah, and then one day... Just one random day, everything was going fine. And then one day, because the churchman misunderstood a message from Heloise that said she was saying that she was going to go out and she would be right back, but he just interpreted as she's leaving and never coming back and told Peter Abellard, and he was so upset that he, unfortunately... got the wrong message, and she was coming back in 15 minutes, but he thought she was leaving, so he cut his own balls off and castrated himself and devoted the rest of his life to live in a monastery. And she called him or wrote him a letter a few weeks later and was like, where are you? And he was like, I cut my balls off and I'm in the monastery, you fucking bitch. And she was like, I just went out to get milk and I am back.
Are you mixing up stories? I thought the father had this guy's balls cut off.
No. What happened was Abellard had... the churchman thought that Abellard had abandoned Heloise, and he became so furious that he hired some men to castrate himself, ending the love affair.
Oh, so he castrated himself?
He castrated himself.
Wild.
Yeah, so that is a jealous Puerto Rican girl thing to do. It's just to get so fucking mad that you're like, well, now this is going to happen. If you leave me, I'm going to cut my dick off.
And they're actually buried. They never saw each other again, but they're buried together.
They're buried together.
In France somewhere.
Yeah.
That's some real crazy French love affair shit.
Yeah.
I love you so much. Just I miss you. I will take my own balls.
I will take my own balls.
I will remove my own balls from fucking... That is wild.
Because also, you have to understand one thing about ancient people. I mean, as you know, even people in like the 1800s, they were tough kids.
They were.
Guys were tough kids,
dude,
back in the day.
They
did not have babies back in the day.
No, all the way up to the 19th century. I'm sorry, the 1900s, really. They didn't even have anesthesia.
No.
When did anesthesia get invented?
It was definitely post-Civil War.
I mean, it was way post-Civil War. I mean, so
I don't know.
Until that point, dudes would get injured. Whatever you had to do, you did it without any... Imagine going to the dentist. They had dentistry back then. They didn't have any fucking anesthesia.
Yeah.
So, like...
Until 1846.
1846, there was no anesthesia.
Before the Civil War, but it wasn't used in the Civil War.
It was not used in the Civil War.
They used morphine, but...
They didn't have morphine in the Civil War.
I thought they had morphine. Didn't they have morphine in the Civil War?
No, fucking morphine. No,
you sure?
Yeah.
I thought they had morphine. Didn't they have opium at least?
I think they just bit on a stick. Zach, can you look that up real quick? It's not really what the episode's about, but we're curious. So anyway, there was many different reasons why someone would become a eunuch.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted for religious reasons.
Right.
Self-flagellation. People, someone's very religious and they find themselves having temptation, and to remove the temptation, they take their nuts out.
Right.
Because that's where the testosterone lives, people. You're nuts.
Now, you and I were having this discussion before about by the way, before we get to that, I just do want to talk about Thomas Boston Corbett, who, it's not that he was so interesting. I mean, he was interesting. He was just he was like just a guy that castrated himself, and whatever, and he he had castrated himself before he became kind of famous for being one of the men responsible for killing Abraham Lincoln. He was in John Wilkes Booth, like one of those three guys.
He was the one. No, he was one of the ones who killed John Wilkes Booth.
Oh, he's one of the guys that killed John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah.
Oh.
Remember they cornered John Wilkes Booth in that fucking.
And he killed him. Oh, okay. Yeah. So a eunuch fucking killed John Wilkes Booth, and he was a born again Christian, and he what I liked about him is he castrated.
Wait a second, we got a quick fact from Zach. What do we find?
So it wasn't used popularly because it was like invented around that time, but it was used in parts during the Civil War.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Thomas Boston Corbett was interesting because he felt like he had a problem with toots, which most guys did back then.
Prostitutes.
Yeah, everyone had a problem with a toot back then. Yeah. So instead of
he
saying...
was addicted to toots.
He was addicted to toots.
Yeah.
So instead of just being like, you know what, I'm just not going to bang out toots anymore, he said the better solution is just to castrate myself.
Yeah, because...
So that's why he did that.
He was ultra-Christian, so it was a real conflict.
Yeah, and he actually walked into Mass General Hospital. Mass General Hospital was around back then. Mm-hmm. He walked into Mass General Hospital, and they said he wasn't really bleeding that bad, and he actually wasn't in that much pain, but they were worried because his scrotum swelled and turned black, but he turned out okay and came back to the hospital the next day and took one of the nurses to dinner. So that is what happened.
Yes, because he actually cut his own nuts out.
Yeah.
But he was such a tough fucking kid that somehow he was able to just keep living after that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he did end his life in a Topeka mental institution for threatening members of the Kansas House of Representatives with a gun, claiming that some of them had been disrespectful and talking during opening prayers.
Make no mistake, we do not recommend cutting your own balls off, even if you feel like it'll help you deal with temptation, because unfortunately it will get infected and you will die. Most people who were castrated, especially in the ancient world, which we're about to get to, they did die.
They did die. And then the next eunuch, we're going to talk about the ancient world, but make no mistake, you want to listen to this whole podcast because we are going to end the podcast with a song that's going to be really cute.
It's going to be really cute, and it is by the only eunuch ever recorded. So stick around for that at the end. But listen, eunuchs, like we said, started all the way back as far as history can record. But they were really popular and really utilized in two regions of the world, in the Eastern world, in China specifically, through all those dynasties. And
now, are you sure it's China, or are you generalizing?
Sorry, I meant the Orient. Whoops, that's even worse.
Yeah, I mean, just because someone has an Asian look does not mean they're Chinese. So it's okay if they are from China, but do they identify from China and they're comfortable with you calling them Chinese?
I am so sorry. Those are good points you're making, Christopher.
Yeah.
So the Chinese, throughout all their dynasties, and we're not going to go through all of them, that's another episode, but eunuchs were highly touted, highly coveted as advisors to the emperors.
Right.
And the reason why they were sought after so much as eunuchs specifically is because the emperors felt like if their advisors were eunuchs,
right,
they would be more loyal to the emperors because they had no family line, no aggressive instinct to pursue a family line, and they would be loyal most to the emperor because what's been taken from them is the source of the deepest drive we all have to spread our own.
Sexual predator.
Kid can't have any kids. He can't have his own line.
Yeah.
So basically, he's just living for the emperor. He's not living for his future generation.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in ancient China's their equivalent of Washington D.C., the White House was called the Forbidden City, and you were not allowed into the Forbidden City as a man unless you were a eunuch.
That's right.
That's just what it was.
So many eunuchs actually rose to have extreme power.
Yeah.
In a lot of those dynasties.
What a lot of Chinese families would do back in the day is because the only way to get into the Forbidden City and really get an audience with the emperor at that time, if they needed something, if they had a beef, they would take one of their sons and castrate them and cut their own balls off with a hope that they would one day be allowed into the Forbidden City and get an audience with the emperor and then be able to tell the emperor to do, to help the family of the castrated boy out. So
get revenge on whoever wronged them.
And get revenge on
whoever
whoever
wronged them. Because
now
their eunuch son has power and has the emperor's ear, and he tells the emperor, hey, we got to fucking take out this landlord.
Yeah.
And really it's just the father who castrated his son sent that son into the fucking, to the emperor's house with the hopes that one day that kid would have enough power with his position so close to the emperor to get fucking revenge on whoever wronged that family.
Exactly.
There is actually a famous eunuch who we will get to who did that, but it ended up he never really, it didn't work out. He didn't actually ever get revenge because as soon as he made it to the get to the emperor, that fucking emperor passed away, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to get to it. You just told the story.
I just told the story.
Yeah, I mean, you
so
just
it is
told
what
the
it
story,
is.
and I mean,
And you know what? The Chinese names are really fucking hard to remember. I'll be honest with you.
I think
they should do in history. They should do like they do here.
Well,
Where
I
they
will
have,
tell
all
you
have
that
English names, and my name is Steve Lee.
Well, I will tell you, his name was Wei
Zhong
Xian.
That's a talk what to remember.
WeizhongXian.
You want to give that a whirl? The real pronunciation?
Is there an if you type that into Google Translate, will they tell us the actual pronunciation if I spell it out? So you give it a shot. You give it a shot, then I'll give it a shot, and we'll see what the actual one is. Okay. So his name, Zach, his first name is Wei, last name Zhong.
Wei Zhong.
No, ZH.
I think I just nailed it. Wei Zhong.
ZHONGXIAN. Yeah.
Wei Zhong.
There we go. Let's see how you.
Wei Zhong Xian.
I'm gonna say Wei Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Where's Des Bishop?
I'm gonna say Wei Zhong Xian.
Let's see. How
Why?
to
Because he
pronounce?
speaks Chinese, right?
He speaks Chinese. Let's see.
Pronunciation. How
Pronounce
to pronounce
kiwi?
No.
What? Yeah. Catalan pronunciation is fine.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Neither one of us were
Wei
right.
Zhong Xian. Try
Wei
again.
Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
One more. Wei Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Where's the May? There's no M there.
Try the Chinese Hong Kong pronunciation. All right, try the Chinese China pronunciation.
None of them work except for the Catalan.
Yeah, I guess
Wei Zhong Xian.
What's the Danish pronunciation?
Yeah.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Wow.
Wei Zhong Xian haben wir.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Because we may be the first people of all 8 billion people on our planet to ever fucking try to get the Danish pronunciation of Wei Zhong Xian.
How about the Taiwan? How about the Taiwanese pronunciation? Can't get it. You know what's wild is
Wei Zhong Xian.
Are they aware of how complicated and hard it is to remember those names? A Steve or a Joe is a lot easier than Wei Zhong Xian.
Yeah, well, I mean, they change their names a lot, you know?
Oh, look at the English pronunciation. Let's
Oh,
try.
yeah.
Wei Zhong Xian.
That's, I don't know. That's
yeah.
tough.
Wei Zhong
Canadian.
Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
So you kind of nailed that one, Wei Zhong
Wei Zhong
Xian.
Xian.
So anyway,
Yeah, so that
Wei
was
Zhong Xian.
that was an unfortunate.
we may need to keep that and put that on just out of nowhere as
Yeah.
one more of our plugs.
Yeah, Wei Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
That should be in like the opening like montage of our
Yeah,
show.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Yeah, so unfortunately for that kid, you know, he cut his piece off.
Well, his father cut his
His father cut his piece off because his father had beef with his neighbors, and then unfortunately, the emperor, after 3 weeks into his surge, after he woke up, the emperor died. So
Yeah.
the new emperor didn't care.
So the cat made it all the way to the emperor's side to be his advisor, and then the emperor fucking died. So that kid, he never got revenge for his family.
what are you gonna do? You know,
So
you take a
that's
chance. Sometimes you swing and you miss. Cause
Yeah.
you win some, you lose some.
But that's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's how brutal history was. That a father was like, you know what? To get revenge on this beef I have, I am going to cut my son's balls off in the hopes that maybe he will be picked to be an advisor to the most powerful man in this region.
Yeah.
What a wild thing. That's not really a good dad. Like, that kid's going to have a lot of issues that therapy will not be able to solve.
Yeah, like my
he's going to
da-
walk in and be like, I have some issues with my dad. He cut my nuts out.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. My dad, I've told you guys on podcasts before, was a compulsive gambler and still is a compulsive gambler, and did unfortunately bet $800, which was pretty close to my mom's life savings at the time, on my gender. He bet $800 and paid up to his friends that I was going to have a vagina, and I did, in fact, come out with a dick and balls. But at least my dad did not turn around and cut my balls off immediately to win the bet. Hold on.
Wei Zhong Xian.
Wei Zhong Xian.
You gotta have that ready. That's good. We're gonna have that for future episodes.
Yeah.
Wei Zhong Xian. There are 600,000 men in North America, just
Right now?
right now, that are living as eunuchs for medical reasons.
And you would never know.
You never know. And
No one's ever going to just come forward with that info.
The vast majority of them, are afflicted with prostate cancer.
Of course, or testicular.
Yeah, so that's that's how they treat it, really.
Yeah.
And they do that either by, like we said, taking it out, taking the actual nuts out, they're surgically removed, or chemically, they do it with drugs. They're anti-androgen drugs.
Okay.
Anti-androgen.
Yeah,
and,
that's shutting down the gonads.
Yeah, and they do it with an injection of the female birth control drug Depo-Provera.
Because how bad do you want to get Depo-Provera in your veins?
Because
you know you want to get on Depo-Provera right now. Yeah.
I may go lie and say I have prostate cancer just so I can get my Depo-Provera shot.
Yeah. Because make no mistake, the castration process back in the day, like with Wei Zhong Xian and other people like him, that you would cut your balls off and then you would stick a piece of bamboo in your wound.
Yeah. My question is, when you get these shots nowadays, you lose muscle and you grow fat. You grow tits.
Yeah, you grow tats.
Yeah,
well, I think I would imagine that, some people who are undergoing like gender reassignment surgery probably take that. Or maybe there's another product like that, elicits the same results. It's probable.
Well, make no mistake, there is a difference. It's eunuchs are not the same as transgendered people.
No.
Eunuchs are not transgendered.
Eunuchs don't have any sexuality anymore. They have no sex drive.
They're just men without balls. Their balls are taken away from them. And as a result, they can't bust
even get an erection. Not even bust it up. You can't get an erection.
Can't get an erection.
You can get, it's very weak if it happens, but most likely it just won't happen.
Yeah.
Anymore.
It's just taken from you.
And there was a big correlation between eunuchs and suicide.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Before we keep going back in time, it seems that, actually, this is back in time a little bit, but a lot of guys who are pedophiles and I guess still have sort of a conscience will castrate themselves.
Will castrate themselves.
And a lot of them report that it helps.
It helps a lot.
It helps a lot.
Or guys who love toots too much,
Yeah, we've talked about those. We gave an example. Those
but the pedophiles, that's interesting, and you had a good point. Your kind of pitch is, if you get convicted of pedophilia, why not just have to legally be castrated by the government?
Well, the thing that made me think about that is because
it's a good point.
There's a lot of people, based on the study I read, that some of them report that it helps. It actually gives them some relief to know that they can't act on that desire, so it's pointless. Yeah, I believe pedophilia is just one of those things that maybe that's the cure.
That's the cure. It's either you put them in, prison will not reform them, so here are your two options. Because, everybody wants to keep their kids safe, and unfortunately, these are the only two. Either we take the more humane way, which I would be a big advocate for, and I would love to castrate them against their will. You have to do it. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, whatever happened in your brain now, you like children, and it sucks, and I know it's painful, and I know you cannot control it, but this is a modern society, so we do have to take your balls in an effort to try to curb your appetite for our children. Or we're going to take you to an island, maybe one of the islands off the coast of North Carolina. There's a lot of islands there, or maybe a nice Hawaiian island, and we will shoot you in the head and throw you in a fucking mass grave.
Those are your two choices.
Those are your two choices. So either you lose your balls or you lose your head. Because unfortunately, I can't. We can't have our children around the pedophiles. And I know it's not your fault. And I know you were probably molested by your parents and it caused this thing and that all sucks.
Whatever.
But unfortunately, it's either you lose your balls or we put you in a mass grave. So you pick.
I mean, I like the idea, especially if the ones who've done it report that, it helps. But the thing I'd be scared of, obviously, is that, people would be getting their dicks cut off and they were falsely accused or something like that. So
that's a problem. So it has to be hard, concrete
It'd have
evidence.
to be really foolproof.
So maybe not every case, but the ones that are first degree sodomy of a child.
Yeah, you gotta get rid of it.
And go to prison.
Yeah, it's crazy that there is a subculture now that's called the Cutters. They call themselves the Cutters.
Sounds like a good music group.
These are dudes who are willing to perform underground genital castrations, and they actually like it. And they get off on it.
They get off on getting their balls cut off or cutting others?
Other people's balls off, and in some cases, cutting their own balls off. So some of them cut their own balls off first. The human brain is fucking wild. Jesus Christ, this is a real... Every time we do an episode, I just can't believe how fucking wild we are. Humans are more interesting than the universe.
Make no mistake that Nero... The Emperor Nero was one of the most wild men to ever live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And make no mistake, in your neighborhood, probably right now, there are hundreds of people who are just like Nero, cutting each other's balls off in the backfields and alleys of your neighborhood. So make no mistake, Nero still exists today in the subculture of the cutters.
Yeah. So these people, they obviously perform these surgeries without a license. And they put themselves at serious fucking legal risk. And it's happening all over the place in North America, Canada, the United States. And what they found, which is really interesting, which is crazy, is that they find, new research has found that cutters, to be a cutter, there's a link with being raised in a devoutly Christian household. But also growing up on a farm. Those are the two defining characteristics.
Well, growing up on a farm because you saw animals be castrated.
Yeah.
That's what it was, right?
That's what it is. That's exactly. Because you're a smart fucking kid.
Yeah. Because make no mistake, we are living at the end of civilization.
Yeah. So it is fucking wild. They did a study of 2,871 individuals that were interested in the, in these cutters, those who had performed or assisted in the castration of another person. The study included 278 individuals who reported that they had been physically castrated, and 98 individuals who were the cutters, some of whom were also castrated,
So
like
weird.
I said. And the study failed to find a singular invariant psychological profile of the cutter.
Okay.
However, the researchers did identify a number of distinguishing characteristics of people who performed castrations on others. The general picture
We live in a wild fucking world.
that emerges someone, the researchers said, is someone who both sought out injury for himself and is willing to injure others. And like I said, most of them grew up on a farm. And 40% of them had witnessed, like you said, animals being castrated. So, and also child abuse emerged as another major factor. 27% of the cutters reported being abused or assaulted as a child, and 24% said they were threatened with castration by their parents or by other adults. So it's fucking very Freudian.
Fucking wild. Is there any, Zach? Is there a video of an animal being castrated that we can watch? I wonder if there's anything that we could find, because it would be nice to kind
We may
of
not
talk
be able
through.
to put it up, but I will look one up. We could probably watch it right now and get your reaction.
Why can't you put? Because of like violence against animals and all that. Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, but in your faith, Zach, they're doing it for religious purposes. That's what the Muzzies are doing. And also, Zach, one thing I want to highlight for you too, in my research, I did find out that in the Muslim countries in like the 700s, 800s AD, if you were a eunuch, you flourished in the society, especially the Ottoman Empire. You were flourishing, and you were got able to talk. You were able to talk to the high ups, and you were able to kind of have whatever you want because you were kind of looked at as a god. So, if you want to bring that back, just kind of talk to the group tonight. I don't know when you're having your next jihad meeting, but
the eunuchs wasn't so prevalent in the Western Roman Empire.
Yeah,
but the more east you went to Byzantium.
Yep. And that's where it was.
And that's where...
unfortunately, that's your side of Christianity. Because the Western... Us, the Roman Catholics, we did not fuck with it. But unfortunately, you and your swarthy brothers and sisters did do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Ottomans kind of picked it up from Byzantium, which they conquered when Constantinople became Istanbul. And unfortunately, in the Ottoman Empire, eunuchs, just like with the Chinese empires, eunuchs were huge. And a huge part of the hierarchy in the Ottoman Empire, fucking eunuchs were everywhere. And they were primarily used as advisors for the reasons we said, because they could be trusted. For some reason, they just thought... By the way, they were wrong a lot of the times. A lot of the eunuchs were fucking bad, but they just thought because they had no balls that they'd be more loyal and they wouldn't be looking to take power.
Make no mistake, because I am mostly an Italian, Irish, and German kid, and I have 2 feet planted firmly in the Western Empire of Christianity, and you are a Greek Turk kid with both
I'm a Greek kid with some Turkish DNA.
With some Turkish DNA.
Unfortunately, we all have a little bit of that.
And you had both feet planted in the Byzantine or the Eastern side of Christianity. Make no mistake, one or more than one of your ancestors was castrated against his will. That is what happened to your ancestors.
Make no mistake, that probably did happen, but make no mistake. Make no mistake. The Catholic Church is responsible for the rape of hundreds of thousands of innocent children. Make no mistake. And not one priest has gone to jail for it. Make no mistake, there's not one man who wore the cloth who stuck his fucking dick in an innocent child's ass who is doing jail time.
Yeah. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Okay, so we got.
I found
what do we got?
I found a video that we can actually show. So
oh, great!
It's just a warning because it's kind of graphic. This guy actually goes, catches a boar, and then castrates it.
Oh boy!
So I guess this is some sort of like animal control wherever he is because they're kind of a nuisance. So he's doing his part to stop that.
Oh boy! Most people consider wild boars a nuisance and do anything to get rid of them. So they're gonna castrate him, and we're gonna watch it. This is very graphic. A wild boar will get castrated in this video.
Yeah.
The boar gets revenge. I'm interested.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm either going to throw up or masturbate.
Oh, you're flirting again is what you're doing.
You want this corn
Why
on
is
here
this
or on?
starting with a baby?
Why is it starting with a baby in a
so
car seat?
a lot of you have been asking,
This guy voted for
what
Donald
is
Trump.
a bar or how a hog becomes a bar?
Can you pause it for 1
Tonight you
second?
find out.
A boar versus
If
a bar.
you think for 1 second that this guy that they just showed from the heartland of Texas, who interacts with animals and boars on a regular basis, is ever going to see more than two genders, I'm sorry, you are mistaken. There are just two different types of people in this United States of America, and both sides will never see the perspective of the other side.
Yeah.
Continue.
And also make no mistake, this man only sees two sides to the human story. It is Christians, and then the other side is Jews and others.
He's about to castrate a fucking boar. He is not going to listen to your perspective on gender fluidity.
He does not care about what you are protesting.
There they go.
Make no mistake, he's wearing a camouflage outfit and camouflage hat.
And he will get his gun and shoot you if you walk on his property.
That hog was just working on him there.
He is chasing a wild boar.
In Wrangler jeans.
While you go to brunch, this kid is going to find his food.
Yeah, and cut his balls off for really no reason.
Make no mistake. They are chasing a wild boar on foot, like our ancestors used to do.
Go to your right, Rafe.
There's two guys. Where are they? Fucking cornfields? You don't even have to look it up, Zach. I'm assuming it's Texas.
It's North Carolina or it's Texas.
Gotta be Carolina or Texas. I mean, whatever. That is some noisy brush. Oh, it's a woman.
Oh, it's a woman.
And she's
Ladies and
freaking
gentlemen,
smoking.
this is Rafe Edwards, straight out of Okeechobee, Florida. He's a professional swine
Same
hunter.
shit.
Of course.
This is Chris from North Georgia.
Wow.
And they got old blue,
Can we pause it for a second?
boar caught.
And they have got a scared wild boar, and they are pulling it by its ear, and this is really hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that pig is frightened to death because he has no idea what's about to happen.
And
This
these
is-
kids think they're doing the will of God and the right thing, and they are not.
Unfortunately, here's the thing, though.
His name is Sporus.
This pig's name is Sport. That would have been fucking dope if they said that. That would have been a hilarious joke.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. What they are doing is actually the right thing because the boar populations, the wild boar populations, are out of control. So they're probably fucking neutering them. So this is what real life is, Chris. We live in a fucking city where we go to a bodega and we eat a ham and cheese sandwich. But you know where that ham comes from?
This boar's dick.
This fucking scared pig right here. And the people who provide us with these hams are these good people right here. Now let's watch this fucking dirty pig get his balls cut off. Yeah!
I've seen this hog on trail camera 100 times, and he's going to become a bar. So out here on our property, we got 3,000 acres. Most ranchers in the state of Florida, they just shoot all the hogs and let them lay. Catch them, kill them, let them lay. They consider them a nuisance. We consider these hogs this is part of our property. This is what we hunt. We hunt deer, turkeys, hogs, ducks. And this boar hog would be good for nothing other than a mount if you killed him right now. You got to use a super sharp knife.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
A lot of you guys just saw me up at Harrisburg. That's a knife I carry all the time. It's a
Holy
little 3-inch Skinner, and it's really
Yeah,
sharp.
I can't watch this right now, but we are fuck! Fuck!
Easy.
Fuck, you know! Fuck! Okay.
You don't want to. And this tail, I don't cut the whole tail off. I just cut the tip, just like that. So if you ever catch him again, you've got something to hold on to. Pull this right here.
He cut his testicles right out and is squeezing ball by ball out.
There.
Yeah.
See, it's not bleeding. Not bleeding at all.
Guy's a professional.
And a lot of people will clip their ears as well on the tip. I don't mark their ears at all because I want them to have full ears in case we ever catch them with dogs again. The dogs can catch. And as you can see, this hog ain't hurt. He's not squealing. But in a matter of no time, in just the next few months, that shield, he's got a shield right here.
Not really.
He'll lose that shield, he'll start building up a layer of fat, and he'll become a great hog eat. He'll become a bar. Now, we're gonna let him go.
Oh, please fucking bite this motherfucker.
And you got to make sure you get all your rope off your hog.
He's not even
If you
bleeding.
leave
Look at
any
that.
rope on the hog, it'll cut into his leg and eventually kill him of infection. Now I'm gonna sit. You ain't got to go anywhere, honey. Just hold it right there.
I'm holding it.
Go ahead.
Wow. I'll hold right there and fight.
Damn, dog. That hog just came to me.
You got another one?
He said not to go anywhere.
Same
Hog
one
just
came
came to
back.
me, bit me on the leg.
Did he not? Did he really?
Look at him, he cut my leg right here.
Yeah, he got revenge.
Yeah!
He came back and bit him on the leg. They can take my balls. You know what? At least I'm getting a fucking bite.
Then they stabbed it in the head.
Unfortunately, these guys are real men. Unfortunately,
That was probably
That was 10
I'm not
out of
gonna lie
10
to you,
hard to watch.
10 out of 10 hard to watch. I actually couldn't watch it because make no mistake, they did make a slice in his nutsack and pop ball by ball out of his nuts.
so I guess that's exactly how it was done to some people. Now, that was fucking the most wild thing we've ever watched.
Even Zach couldn't look at it, and
Yeah.
Zach wants to drink the blood of infidels.
Was that tough for you to watch, Zach?
Well, I don't eat pork, so.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Oh, that was rough. But believe it or not, eunuchs in the Ottoman Empire, they had eunuchs they would get from the Caucasus. Those were what they called their white eunuchs, the Caucasus and the Balkans. And then they would get their black eunuchs from Sub-Sahara, from Ethiopia. And those were the two types of eunuchs they would get. And they would fucking castrate them. And at first, the white eunuchs would rise to higher positions of power.
Right.
Then eventually, black eunuchs,
Right.
for most of the Ottoman Empire, which was a really long time, and all the way up until 1911 or 20 or somewhere around there, black eunuchs were the advisors to the sultans.
Right.
They also played a huge role in guarding the harems of the sultans. And what is a harem? A harem is, in the Ottoman Empire, sultans would just have these apartments, these areas of the palace that were just all their wives and their slaves and their sex slave and their toots and their favorite girls. They basically had an endless number of women who they married,
Right.
and who they fucked for pleasure,
Right.
and who they enslaved, or who cut their nails or whatever. And the eunuchs would guard them and attend to them. And of course, the reason why that was considered appropriate is because they were still kind of men, so they were strong enough to protect them a little bit, but they had no balls, so they couldn't fuck them.
It is what
It
is.
is what it is.
So yeah, so unfortunately, eunuchs throughout history have existed, and they still exist, and they will continue to exist. But make no mistake, that video that I just watched of a wild boar getting his balls cut out has changed me as a human being. Make no mistake, boys and girls.
You could actually look up a photograph of a black eunuch from the Ottoman Empire. His name was Pascal Seba.
And he was known as the chief black eunuch.
Yeah, and the picture's from the 1870s. And you can actually Google that picture of Pascal Seba.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know. I honestly think the only thing to do right now is to end this podcast on a song from a eunuch, because I can't go on.
I mean, it's tough.
I literally can't go on. So I want to play a song for you guys in a minute here by Alessandro Moresky, who was the last known eunuch to perform in the Sistine Chapel choir, and the only eunuch that we've ever heard sing who was a eunuch from, like, you know, the olden times, and it was a eunuch for religious reasons, that we've ever even heard his voice recorded.
Well, no, they used to cut him out for singing reasons.
Yeah.
So this is the castrati in the 15th and 16th century. This guy's, but this guy was all the way. When was he?
The
He was
1901.
1901.
1901, so we can hear his voice. And
So the opera singers, they called these castrati. These guys cut their balls off so they can hit high notes and sing really beautiful opera. And be honest with you, this guy can fucking blow.
This guy can fucking blow. And Cuzzies, we're going to play this for you for the general public. But if you like this episode and you like the History Hyenas, you need to go on patreon.com/BayRidgeBoys and be a part of the matriarchy, and tell your friends to be a part of the matriarchy, because we got a lot of videos coming up there, and we're going to be talking more about eunuchs and other fucking wild shit. But it was only for our Patreon members, because there's a lot of shit that we can't say in public that we can only tell to our community, and that's where we say it. And it's fucking wild.
And join our Patreon. We're going to be doing a Patreon-only episode where we delve deeper into a few wild facts about freaking eunuchs.
Patreon.com/BayRidgeBoys.
Enjoy the beautiful angelic voice of the only eunuch ever recorded singing, Alessandro Moresky. Chris just farted in the microphone. That could be the only time in history where a eunuch sang while a man farted. History Hyenas, bang, bang.